Jubilation as I celebrate Donald Trump's 100th day in office. I assume there'd be a big round of applause. No? We have, 100 days behind us and only 13 more 100 days to go. It's been an historic 100 days.
Trump built his brand on being untouchable, the larger-than-life mogul who always had the last word. But Jimmy Kimmel cuts through that illusion like a hot knife through cheap reality TV plastic. With his sharp wit and relentless timing, Kimmel doesn't just poke fun at Trump, he dissects him. Every inflated boast, every clumsy outburst, every desperate performance gets stripped bare, leaving the president not as a titan of politics, but as a parody of himself.
Oh, yeah. In the United States, they had to send the president instead. President Trump flew to Rome to pay his respects and also to see if he could get a deal on the Pope Mobile to drive around his golf course. For whatever reason, even though the Vatican dress code specifically recommended a dark suit for the service, Trump showed up in his bluest blue suit. Something from the Cedric the Entertainer funeral collection.
Trump walks around as if the White House was just another wing of Trump Tower, a gaudy lobby waiting for gold-plated escalators and overpriced steaks with his face on the box. But Kimmel takes that illusion and pulverizes it, reminding everyone that a president who marketed himself like a shopping channel salesman was always going to be comedy gold. It wasn't statesmanship, it was QVC in a red tie selling nationalism like a discount blender. And every time Trump puffed his chest to claim he was the greatest, Kimmel peeled back the layers to show a man who spent more time bragging about imaginary achievements than actually producing results.
There have been some positives. Unfortunately, they've all been pregnancy tests for women who slept with Elon Musk, but there have been some positives. I mentioned last night that Trump's approval rating is the lowest of any president at this point in his term since they've been doing polls like this, at least 80 years, maybe 90 years.
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Trump's obsession with crowd sizes was the early warning sign that his presidency was basically an ego management seminar disguised as government. Most presidents focus on the economy, foreign policy, or maybe even healthcare. Trump? He was counting heads at rallies like a wedding DJ counting who showed up for the chicken dinner. Kimmel couldn't resist dragging him for this, turning the biggest inauguration crowd ever into one of the funniest political delusions of all time. Because in Trump's mind, empty bleachers and patches of grass magically transformed into oceans of adoring fans. And when photographers pointed out the obvious, he went ballistic, proving that the fragile ego of the self-proclaimed dealmaker could be shattered by a wide-angle lens.
News you may remember had a collective aneurysm when President Obama wore a tan suit to a press briefing. Man, oh man, if Obama wore in a blue suit to the Pope's funeral, Sean Hannity's head would explode inside Trump's ass. The fact that he was the only person not wearing a dark suit did not go unnoticed, so the White House press secretary pushed back. She said the president looked great and presidential alongside our stunning First Lady, who was, as usual, dressed perfectly for the occasion. And she's right about Melania. I don't know about stunning, but she definitely looks stunned.
Then came the tweets, those infamous 3 a.m. rants where Trump decided world policy should be handled with the grace of a reality show confessional. Kimmel pounced on those, pointing out that no leader in history has tried to settle international disputes by yelling into his phone like a teenager live blogging a breakup. Trump turned Twitter into a nuclear launch pad for insults, throwing tantrums about anyone who dared to question his greatness. Kimmel framed it perfectly. Here was a man supposedly running the free world, yet spending more time feuding with late-night hosts, athletes, and department stores than actually governing.
Even Fox News has the president polling poorly, which is a fact that did not go over bigly with Trump spokesgoblin Stephen Miller.
New Fox News poll shows that the border has been one of your big successes, but everything else, he's sort of underwater. What do you say?
Well, I don't want to make things awkward for you, John, but it is our opinion that Fox News needs to fire his pollster.
And speaking of department stores, only Trump could start a feud with Macy's and Nordstrom because they didn't want his family's tacky brand clogging their shelves. Kimmel pointed out the absurdity. The man who styled himself as the titan of business couldn't even keep his name on a tie rack. That's not the art of the deal. That's the clearance aisle of irrelevance.
The prices that Donald Trump promised to bring down on day one are still going up. You know the store Dollar Tree, where everything cost $1? Because of inflation, Dollar Tree had to raise their prices to $1.25. And now because of these big, beautiful tariffs, they're reportedly planning to raise prices again, which is a problem because the store is called Dollar Tree. And so now they've even had to make adjustments to their commercials.
But Kimmel's sharpest barbs cut deeper because they revealed the obvious contradiction Trump can't hide. The man who boasts about being the smartest, strongest, richest, and most beloved president in history constantly exposes himself as needy, insecure, and desperate for approval. Trump talks like he's George Washington reincarnated, but sulks like a kid who didn't get picked first for dodgeball. Kimmel didn't need to exaggerate. He just pointed to the nightly display of contradictions and let the hypocrisy collapse under its own weight. And then there was Trump's handling of COVID, a masterclass in how not to manage a crisis. Kimmel tore into this circus, highlighting the absurdity of a president suggesting medical advice that sounded like it came from a late-night infomercial. Instead of science, Trump gave slogans. Instead of empathy, he gave ratings obsessions. He bragged about how many people tuned in to watch him mangle facts like it was an episode of The Apprentice, forgetting that viewers weren't there for reassurance. They were rubbernecking the wreck.
He finally announced his first new trade deal today. He made a deal with the UK, so only 180 countries to go, I guess. He is very proud of himself for making a trade agreement with a country we were trading with just fine until he screwed it all up. This is funny. One of the companies that's getting a break from this deal is Rolls-Royce. So rest easy, Ma and Pa MAGA hat. You're still going to lose the farm, but you'll only have to pay 10% extra on that Rolls-Royce you've had your eye on.
Kimmel's brilliance lies in how he frames Trump's failures not as tragic missteps, but as laughably predictable outcomes of a man who treats politics like a casting call. Trump didn't run to lead, he ran to stay famous, and Kimmel twisted the knife by showing that fame without credibility turns into mockery. The louder Trump shouted about being respected, the more he became the butt of every joke. The real kicker is how Kimmel highlights Trump's obsession with legacy. Trump wants the statues, the airports named after him, the eternal glory in history books. But what he's getting instead is a footnote dripping with comedy. Kimmel drags that fantasy into the spotlight, showing that the only monument Trump is guaranteed is a marble bust carved into a circus clown. Every attempt Trump made to project strength collapsed under Kimmel's lens. The tough guy act, the alpha male posturing, the endless bluster, it all dissolved into the spectacle of a man terrified of being irrelevant.
And then we have the Easter dummy, Donald Trump, who, don't worry, is making lots of money, and he's spending money, too, specifically our money. President Trump has been doing an extreme makeover of the White House. Everything's gold now. Look at this room. It's all gold. The press secretary called it the golden office for the golden age, which is quite a spin. And for such an anti-DEI kind of guy, you wouldn't think he'd have the same taste as Liberace, but he does. He has reportedly been redecorating with help from his, quote, gold guy, which I don't know what kind of a person has a gold guy.
Trump struts like a king, but panics like a jester when the applause stops. And that's the genius of Kimmel's roast. He makes it impossible to see Trump as the titan he claims to be. Instead, he becomes the emperor with no clothes, just an ill-fitting suit, a long red tie, and a desperate need for validation. What Kimmel really does is redefine Trump's presidency not as a political era, but as an entertainment blooper reel. The failed handshakes, the awkward dances, the Sharpie edits, the hurricane paper towels, every moment that Trump tried to be larger than life turned into slapstick. Kimmel doesn't just roast Trump, he traps him in the very thing he fears most: ridicule. Because for a man who thrives on being taken seriously, there's no greater insult than becoming a permanent punchline. And that's what Trump has become. Not the hero of his own saga, but the butt of Kimmel's jokes, the meme that won't fade, the leader who turned the Oval Office into a late-night monologue.
We took it from 25 to 10 on Rolls-Royce because Rolls-Royce is not going to be built here. I wouldn't even ask them to do that. You know, it's a very special car. And unless somebody shows me that there's another kind of a car that's comparable to a Rolls-Royce, then there aren't too many. This is a good commercial for Rolls-Royce, but they're going to order a lot of cars.
Mr. President, I wonder whether you'd like to buy.
Oh. You know, the last time that happened, I ended up buying a Tesla. You know?
He's still pronouncing it Tesla. And where is that Tesla, you allegedly? He gave the Tesla to Melania.
And that's the final gut punch. For all of Trump's talk of dominance and greatness, Jimmy Kimmel proves that the legacy he's leaving behind isn't carved in stone. It's scribbled in the margins of comedy. Trump wanted to be remembered as a giant. Kimmel ensures he'll be remembered as the blooper reel that history can't stop laughing at. What makes Jimmy Kimmel's takedown so brutal is that it doesn't rely on conspiracy, bitterness, or cheap shots. It relies on something far worse for a man like Trump: consistency. Kimmel doesn't just point out the gaffes, he builds a mosaic of them. Kimmel highlights how Trump's obsession with appearing strong has paradoxically made him weaker. Instead of accepting mistakes or adjusting course, he doubles down with the kind of stubbornness usually reserved for toddlers refusing to eat broccoli. And every time he does, the spectacle grows, the punchlines multiply, and the image of strength begins to look more like fragile ego wrapped in loud bravado.
Maybe we elected Adam Sandler from Uncut Gems. Trump's gold guy is a cabinet maker named John Eichhardt. He lives in South Florida, and he's worked on similar projects for Trump down there. He's the one who child-proofed the outlets at Mar-a-Lago when Eric wouldn't stop sticking forks into them. We scoured the internet. This is the only image of John Eichhardt we could find. It appears to be him on maybe a vinyl recliner, taking a very poorly framed selfie. Just from that photo alone, I could definitely see him working for Trump.
The funniest part is how Trump sees comedy as a weapon he should be immune from. In his mind, comedians are supposed to joke about everyone else, not him. But Kimmel exposes the irony. Trump is the one who delivers more material than any comedy writer could dream of. The man who claims to be untouchable is, in fact, the single easiest target in the room. Kimmel doesn't need to exaggerate. He simply mirrors Trump's words back at him, and the absurdity takes care of itself. What's devastating is that Kimmel's roast goes beyond entertainment. It reframes Trump as a character in a sitcom nobody asked for. The deeper Kimmel digs, the more he exposes the fragility behind the facade. The man who constantly boasts of winning ends up defined by how often he loses. Court cases, staff loyalty, credibility, even the basic grasp of his own talking points. And Kimmel doesn't shout this. He paints it with sarcasm, sharp enough to slice through the bluster.
For a Barbie for Christmas this year, just say, we can't afford that, honey, but maybe you'd like some John Smedley knitwear? This trade agreement is the biggest deal Trump has made with Britain since the time he convinced them to make his stunt double their prime minister. Today, the current British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was not able to be at the White House, but he did call in to kiss some ass via speakerphone.
Donald, thank you so much. It's really good to have this deal over the line. Tribute to both teams, tribute to our countries, and tribute to your leadership.
Keir, thank you very much.
Thanks, Donald, and we'll speak again soon.
Very good. So long. Bye.
By the time Kimmel is done, Trump doesn't look like the powerful incumbent leading the nation. He looks like a sideshow attraction that wandered into politics and overstayed his welcome. Every boast becomes an unintentional punchline. Every speech, a blooper reel in real time. Kimmel's roast leaves no room for interpretation. Trump isn't the man rewriting history. He's the blooper that history will keep replaying. In the end, Kimmel delivers a kind of justice that doesn't require subpoenas or hearings. He gives Trump the one thing his ego cannot tolerate: ridicule on a scale too large to control. It doesn't ask for permission, it doesn't care about polls, and it doesn't vanish with a press release. Once the laughter starts, it spreads like wildfire, uncontrollable and contagious. Kimmel shows with surgical precision that Trump's greatest weakness isn't political opposition or media scrutiny. It's the simple, devastating truth that he becomes funniest when he's trying the hardest to be serious.
Show them together, because this is the happiest I've ever seen these two together. It's like they're on their second honeymoon or something. And then the president either went deep in prayer or deep asleep, I don't know. Meanwhile, our former president, Joe Biden, was there too, and he was chatting people up like he was a greeter at Walmart.
And so the conclusion lands like a hammer blow, impossible to ignore, resonating far louder than any of Trump's carefully scripted rallies or staged moments of bravado. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't just roast Trump, he reshapes the entire perception of him in real time. The feared disruptor who once dominated headlines, the supposed master manipulator of media cycles, the chest-thumping strongman who relished commanding every room with bluster alone. Gone. The applause he craves, the validation he desperately seeks, now arrives distorted, always sounding more like laughter than loyalty. And that is the bitter twist. The legacy he yearns for, power, respect, historical weight, slips through his hands. What endures instead is something far less dignified, yet far more permanent: punchlines. A caricature preserved not by greatness, but by the endless jokes written at his expense.